At the beginning of the movie, we are introduced to a beautiful woman named Ariane. She is the daughter of a very famous, powerful gangster boss in Hong Kong. That day, Ariane attended a gangster meeting in a building, where Ariane came here to fulfill her father's request. Soon, one of the members from a rival gang tries to belittle Ariane in an attempt to embarrass her father. A gangster boss tells Ariane to do a sword dance. Hearing this order, Ariane did not remain silent and proved her skills in front of her father's gangster rivals. With the poise of a sword, Ariane skillfully danced around the event, displaying her impressive swordsmanship. But things turned tense when one of the rival gang members deliberately broke a glass and threw the shards on the floor. Because this caused Ariane's leg to be injured. Even though she was in pain, Ariane persisted. In this situation, Ariane proved that she was not just any woman. She continued her movements, but the guests mocked and laughed. This made Ariane's frustration peak. And when she danced with fast and powerful movements, suddenly, what a surprise! The member who had been scattering glass shards suddenly had his hand pierced by a sword. With the tense situation, the other members became emotional and wanted to immediately attack the gang. However, Ariane's father, whose mindset was mature, immediately resolved the problem. Because of last night's incident, Ariane didn't accept it, so she tracked down the gangster leader. And she managed to find the gangster boss who was shaving at a barber shop. Then Ariane started her action and killed the gang leader on the spot. As a result, the death of the boss immediately made all the members scared to death. They changed their boss quickly, where this time their boss was a bald man named G-Chol. G-Chol is different from previous leaders. He tends to be tough and doesn't play around fighting anyone. What is clear is that this news was immediately realized by Ariane's father, whose name is Tilon. Her father knew very well that his daughter was being threatened by danger. Ariane will be the main target and will be hunted non-stop. Here Ariane was asked by her father to move countries, and she intended to go to South Korea. Instead, she wanted to find her mother, whose father had left her for 20 years. And what could be done about that wish? Her father immediately contacted one of the well-known gangs in Korea to look after Ariane. Coincidentally, the Korean gang took the initiative to employ a man named G-Chol, where G-Chol has two subordinates named Gangster and Domi. As a result, it didn't take long for the three of them to immediately pick up Ariane at the airport. But just as they started, the three people didn't realize that Ariane was waiting next to them because they didn't know each other's faces. Then all the way to the city, Ariane really showed a serious face. She was not a woman who could be talked to like other women. Where G-Chol thinks that Ariane is an ordinary rich kid who has a spoiled and timid nature. After that, Ariane was brought before the Korean mafia. G-Chol intends to inform the highest superior that he has succeeded in picking up the client. But again, Ariane acted as she pleased because she thought that G-Chol talked too much. Even after arriving at the superior's office, Ariane acted indifferent. She doesn't care who is currently talking in front of her because Ariane's goal in Korea is only one thing, namely looking for her mother. Long story short, Ariane was taken to a guest house. This house will later become their base camp to avoid being chased by arrogant gangs. It's just that the language barrier between all of them really makes things even more complicated. And from their Domi and Gangster no longer wanted to be taken for granted, they immediately pretended to have a manly fight in front of Ariane. But who would have thought that the joke would suddenly turn serious? and then G-Chol arrives, who feels interested in participating. Moreover, Arion is seen peeking from a distance like a woman who is being fascinated by men. Here the three of them don't know that Arion is much stronger than them. She is able to deliver blows that have great pain. Where the attraction was apparently seen by a woman named Yeon-hee. It turns out that Yeon-hee here is tasked with being a translator from Mandarin to Korean. Because without a translator it would be difficult for all of them to understand each other's meaning. Here Yeon-hee is very afraid of the three gangsters because they are very powerful in the area. Here Arion explains her purpose here is to find her missing mother, who was last heard of in Korea. The next day G-Chol's men are harassed by several other gang members. They were outnumbered, but luckily Arion was also at the scene. So she responded to the opponent by kicking a small table at them and making them fall. Then G-Chol's men start beating them one by one. Arion, Yeon-hee and the gangsters go to a restaurant to eat and drink. After getting drunk, G-Chol and one of his men went to the bathroom to relieve themselves. Suddenly, a gangster named Dol-dom comes to avenge the defeat of his men, but before that they try to harass Arion. With his cold attitude, due to the disrespectful treatment of the gangster leader, Arion was able to slaughter them easily. The gang leader casually kept talking. Arion, who didn't like the gang leader's attitude, then kicked him. On the other hand, one of G-Chol's men who saw the incident then reported the situation to G-Chol, who was in the bathroom. G-Chol, who was too drunk, didn't believe the story from his men that Arion was fighting gangsters alone. Long story short, Dol-dom and his members reported to their gang boss, but Dol-dom made G-Chol the main target. Dol-dom didn't tell the truth that he was beaten by a woman. If he tells the truth, his self-esteem could drop in front of the gangster leader. So Dol-dom admits that this was G-Chol's doing. The next day, the gang boss didn't accept G-Chol's treatment of Dol-dom, so he met G-Chol and Arion, and they were both invited to his gangster headquarters. When they arrive, G-Chol is shocked to find that his men have been beaten. This makes G-Chol angry, so he acts against his rival gang boss. But because of his ordinary fighting technique, this is what happened. Luckily, Arion helped him. She picked up a bean on the table and threw it straight at the boss's face. When the boss fell, his men immediately surrounded G-Chol and started beating him. Even though he is outnumbered, G-Chol remains alert to fulfill his duty to protect Arion. Then Arion shows her prowess to G-Chol. G-Chol was suddenly shocked and finally realized Arion's extraordinary fighting abilities. Shortly after their victory, the five of them decided to return home. In the evening, G-Chol and Arion relaxed together outside for drinks. It's clear that there is a language barrier between the two, but G-Chol begins to feel attracted to Arion. Arion also seemed to enjoy his company. The next day, the three of them came to an emergency meeting. It turns out that this meeting was deliberately held to stop his opponent G-Chol, who was already looking for trouble first. G-Chol was deemed to have acted correctly to the point that his position was immediately promoted drastically. Then the scene shifts to Gak-chong. As an enemy of his father Arion, Gak-chong deliberately hired 3 hitmen. where these three hitmen will be tasked with targeting Arion, who is in South Korea. And as a result, the revenge mission will soon be carried out. The three of them quickly targeted Arion, who was in the entertainment area. Arion had just had fun and began to realize that something was wrong in this place. She has strong feelings and is able to prove the whereabouts of the three hitmen. Suddenly the three assassins began to come clean regarding what their true goals were. Even though there is resistance from G-Chol, the three hitmen will be far superior because they use guns as weapons. And the result was that Arion was shot in the shoulder and had to be treated immediately at the base camp. But here Yeon-hee, who immediately rushed to give medicine, was immediately panicked. She said that there was a spy car out there that was approaching the house soon. They all quickly ran away. G-Chol goes with Arion while Yeon-hee goes with Domi and Gong-chai. While being chased like this, a state of panic really accompanies them. But Domi just realized that these people were deliberately targeting Arion, who was in front. And again with very high initiative, Arion immediately took over. Who knows what G-Chol was dreaming of? In this position he really felt an extraordinary shock. The more stairs there are, the more shaking you will feel. And of course this will be the pleasure for G-Chol that he has been waiting for. In the end, after a long struggle, they managed to escape from the people's pursuit. After that, G-Chol stopped by his parents' house. He deliberately invited Arion, who looked like an innocent woman. Even though Arion himself was never used to behaving politely. She was so polite that she was teased by the residents who were in the yard. But after just sitting politely for 1 minute, Arion herself felt unbearably sore. As a result, that night G-Chol immediately became a victim of Arion's ferocity. That same night, Arion's father, Tilon, was secretly meeting with G-Chol. They discussed old problems that were not considered resolved until now. But who would have thought that that night, Arion's father died? In this way, Arion herself had been given a signal that G-Chol was very ready to start the war. When morning came, G-Chol was deliberately given a necklace by his mother, where the necklace was deliberately addressed to Arion, who had been polite from the start. But G-Chol is not sure that Arion will accept the necklace. During this phase, his father also tried to get G-Chol to be close to Arion. Not long after, the two of them immediately returned to the city center, but unfortunately, after not even an hour in the city, Arion was already intending to look for her mother. Who would have thought that, during this search, Arion would actually encounter a mysterious car? It turned out that the car was occupied by 3 hitmen. And fortunately, at a moment like this, a motorbike came along which raised dust among them. That way, Arion was able to deliver a sudden attack. With the female assassin remaining, a one-on-one scene occurred in an instant. At first, this fight was really fierce. Attack after attack was launched at each other without any mercy. But soon it was discovered that Arion had won a landslide victory over the hitman. This victory was witnessed directly by G-Chol and her friends, who were increasingly amazed by Arion. It's just that after all that, Arion decided to return to her hometown. Because in this position she had just received news that her father was seriously ill due to the G-Chol attack. And the sadness that befell Arion could no longer be contained. Emotions, revenge, and also a sense of loss all mixed into one. 3 days later, the scene shifts to his son G-Chol's wedding day. G-Chol, as the supreme leader, really felt proud of his son. But here he was completely unaware that something unexpected was about to happen. Where Arion secretly managed to penetrate and disguise herself as a bride. She walked in front of G-Chol while waiting for the right time. And once she had the opportunity, Arion immediately acted brutally. One by one she succeeded in paralyzing G-Chol's men in a matter of seconds. Arion's goal this time is to eliminate G-Chol, who acts as a father. During this action, Arion began to be helped by G-Chol. But G-Chol's presence actually makes things even more troublesome and chaotic. And without further ado, Arion immediately defeated G-Chol in a very short time. And at this moment it can be stated that G-Chol has died, while G-Chol has survived. 1 week later, the scene immediately shifts to Arion, who has become the leader of her father's gang. She became the only female leader who was most respected in all of Hong Kong. In fact, not only Hong Kong, one Korean country also bowed before Arion. But even so, Arion just realized that she could also submit to someone else, which was clearly G-Chol. Arion was so submissive that she was completely unwilling to let G-Chol return to South Korea. And to overcome this, G-Chol was immediately confronted by the mafia, including Arion herself. It turns out that this act of obstruction was deliberately carried out by Arion to force G-Chol to marry her. And since that day their lives ended happily. And the movie is over. Thank you for watching. Look forward to the next video.